Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, the first president of Kenya, was one of the most iconic figures in African history. He was not only a leading figure in the struggle for independence, but also a statesman who played a crucial role in shaping the destiny of the newly independent nation. His life was a tapestry woven with political struggles, personal challenges, and a dedication to his vision of a free and prosperous Kenya. This narrative will explore various aspects of Kenyatta's life, including his education, family, imprisonment, leadership, altercations with opponents, presidency, and eventual demise. Jomo Kenyatta was born on October 20, 1897, in the village of Kamiriithu in Kiambu County, central Kenya. He was born into the Kikuyu ethnic group, which would play a central role in his future political life. His birth name was Kamau Washington Ngengi. Kenyatta came from a humble background, with his father being a farmer and his mother playing an integral role in the household. However, despite the challenges of his early life, Kenyatta showed a remarkable level of intellect from a young age. Kenyatta's early education was primarily influenced by his village environment. Like many children of the time, he attended a local mission school where he learned to read and write. His education at this level was limited, but it laid the foundation for his later ventures into formal schooling. His exposure to Western education would be a significant force in shaping his worldviews. In his teenage years, Kenyatta moved to Nairobi, the capital city of Kenya, where he attended additional schooling at the Nairobi Government African School. This period marked the beginning of his engagement with Western ideas and the growing realization that Kenya's future lay in the struggle for independence. Kenyatta's education was not confined to the classroom alone. He began to associate with influential political figures and intellectuals who would play crucial roles in Kenya's future. During this period, Kenyatta's education took a transformative turn. He ventured to London in the early 1930s to further his studies. He enrolled at the prestigious University of London, where he pursued a degree in anthropology. His time in London was formative in many ways, as he came into contact with key political leaders, activists, and intellectuals, all of whom influenced his emerging nationalist consciousness. Kenyatta's exposure to the struggle for African independence across the continent, particularly the events in South Africa, ignited a strong sense of African unity. Kenyatta's personal life was marked by several significant relationships. His first known wife was Grace Wahu, whom he married in the 1920s. The couple had children together, and Wahu played an important role in Kenyatta's early life. However, their marriage ended in divorce, which would become a notable event in Kenyatta's personal life. In the 1930s, Kenyatta married his second wife, Edna Clark, a British woman with whom he had a child. However, this marriage was also short-lived, and the couple eventually separated. Kenyatta's most well-known and enduring marriage was to Mama Ngina Kenyatta, who became his third wife. Mama Ngina was a crucial figure in Kenyatta's personal and political life, supporting him through his struggles and serving as a mother figure to his children. Together, they had several children, including the future Kenyan president, Uhuru Kenyatta. This union would prove to be significant, not only in terms of personal life but also in consolidating Kenyatta's political power. Kenyatta's family life was intertwined with his political journey, with his children playing varying roles in the evolving narrative of Kenya's independence struggle. His marriage to Mama Ngina was emblematic of the traditional Kikuyu values that Kenyatta sought to uphold as Kenya moved towards independence. In the early 1950s, as Kenya's demand for independence intensified, Jomo Kenyatta's role as a leading nationalist figure began to crystallize. His vocal opposition to British colonial rule made him a target of the colonial authorities. In 1952, during the Mau Mau uprising, Kenyatta was arrested and accused of leading the insurgent movement. The Mau Mau was a militant nationalist organization that sought to end British colonial rule and reclaim land from European settlers. Although there is no concrete evidence linking Kenyatta to the Mau Mau, he was arrested and sentenced to imprisonment for over 7 years. Kenyatta's imprisonment was a significant turning point in the history of Kenya's struggle for independence. His imprisonment became a rallying point for nationalists, who saw him as a symbol of resistance to British colonial oppression. The political climate in Kenya grew increasingly charged, and Kenyatta's role as the figurehead of the independence movement solidified during his imprisonment. Kenyatta's family and political allies worked tirelessly to secure his release. His release in 1961 marked a major victory for the Kenyan nationalist movement. However, his time in prison left a lasting impact on Kenyatta, shaping his leadership style and the way he viewed the political landscape of Kenya. Following his release from prison, Kenyatta was rapidly thrust into the limelight as Kenya's foremost leader in the fight for independence. However, his rise to prominence was not without its challenges, particularly from political opponents. One of the most prominent figures who opposed Kenyatta was Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, a fellow nationalist leader and a key figure in Kenya's independence struggle. Odinga, who was initially a supporter of Kenyatta, soon became disillusioned with his leadership style and political ideologies. Odinga represented a faction of the independence movement that sought a more socialist approach to Kenya's governance, while Kenyatta was inclined towards a more capitalist model. The ideological differences between the two men led to a growing rift. In 1966, Odinga openly criticized Kenyatta's leadership, accusing him of moving too far away from the ideals of the independence struggle. This led to Odinga's resignation from his position as Kenya's vice president and the formation of a rival political faction. The split between the two men marked the beginning of a bitter political rivalry that would define much of the early post-independence period in Kenya. The rivalry between Kenyatta and Odinga was not just political but also personal. Kenyatta's leadership style, which was often seen as authoritarian, clashed with Odinga's vision of a more inclusive and democratic Kenya. The fallout between the two men had far-reaching consequences for Kenyan politics, with Odinga and his supporters becoming vocal critics of Kenyatta's policies, leadership, and presidency. In 1963, Kenya achieved independence and Jomo Kenyatta became the nation's first prime minister. The following year, in 1964, he became the first president of Kenya. His leadership was characterized by the establishment of a strong centralized government that sought to unify the various ethnic groups in Kenya under one national identity. Kenyatta's presidency was marked by his efforts to promote national unity and economic development. However, his leadership was also marked by authoritarianism. Kenyatta consolidated power by suppressing political opposition and centralizing authority in his office. He also sought to preserve the interests of the Kikuyu community, which had supported him throughout his political journey. Kenyatta's presidency saw significant economic growth in Kenya, especially in the agricultural sector. The government implemented policies aimed at increasing food production and improving infrastructure. However, despite these successes, the country also experienced rising inequality, with wealth concentrated in the hands of a few political elites and landowners. Kenyatta also promoted Africanization, a policy that aimed to replace European settlers and expatriates with indigenous Kenyans in key sectors of the economy. This policy was particularly important in the agricultural sector, where land redistribution was prioritized. However, this also led to tensions as many landless Kenyans were unable to access the land promised to them. Demise. Jomo Kenyatta's presidency came to an end on August 22, 1978, when he passed away after a prolonged illness. His death marked the end of an era in Kenya's history. Kenyatta had ruled the country for 15 years, and his legacy was cemented as the founding father of the nation. After his death, Kenyatta was succeeded by his vice president, Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, who had been groomed by Kenyatta to take over the leadership. Moi's succession marked a shift in Kenya's political landscape, but Kenyatta's influence remained felt for years to come. Kenyatta's death was followed by a period of national mourning, and his state funeral was one of the largest ever held in Kenya. Kenyatta's legacy continues to shape Kenya to this day. His vision of a united, independent, and self-reliant Kenya remains a cornerstone of the nation's political ideology. Despite controversies surrounding his leadership, Kenyatta is remembered as a symbol of Kenya's struggle for independence and its emergence as a sovereign nation. Conclusion: Mzee Jomo Kenyatta's life was a journey that mirrored the transformation of Kenya from a British colony to an independent republic. His contributions to the nation through his leadership, vision, and sacrifices were instrumental in shaping Kenya's identity. From his humble beginnings in Kamiriithu to becoming the first president of Kenya, Kenyatta's life was marked by triumphs and challenges, personal sacrifices, and ideological conflicts. His presidency, while controversial, left an indelible mark on the country's political and economic landscape. Despite the divisions and contradictions that marked his leadership, Kenyatta remains one of Africa's most influential figures, a man whose legacy continues to inspire and shape Kenya's future. His life story is not just the history of one man, but the story of a nation coming of age in a complex and often turbulent political world.